I think this is an area that women think is never going to happen to me if I'm over 40, but the stats really don't show that. So let's dive in. Why are women in this age group, why do they need to really worry about HPV and what that really means?
When we talk about HPV virus, I'm especially referring to the high-risk types of HPV virus. There's over 150 different types of HPV. Most of them are low risk, meaning they're not associated with cancer risk. But there's 13 types of high-risk HPV that are associated with cancer risk, particularly type 16 and 18. And the thing is that a lot of times women think, oh, this is just something that younger women are dealing with or thinking about. And while certainly the highest likelihood of cervical cancer can be between age 22 to 44-ish, actually what the studies are showing is that the average age of all women with cervical cancer is 50. And that means that there's even 20% of women over age 65 that are finding out that they have cervical cancer. So this is not something that's just younger women. This can happen really, it doesn't tend to happen before age 20, but from 20 on, this is something that we need to be aware of. And Betty, it's the third most common cancer in the United States and most other countries in the world, the third most common cancer. So this is, while we tend to push it away and not think about it and, you know what I mean, procrastinate getting our gyne exams, this is actually something that's really important, because when we can catch it before it turns into cancer, there's so much we can do to prevent it. Like, my real mission is to reduce cervical cancer rates due to high-risk HPV virus. And 99% of cervical cancer is caused by high-risk HPV.
The reality is when we're probably looking at some of these other cancers like vaginal cancer, anal cancer, which killed Farrah Fawcett, I hate to break it to you, but also
Yes.
salivary gland cancer that can, it's not just there.
70% of head and neck cancer is caused by high-risk HPV, and not just in women, but also in men. So this is a rapidly increasing cancer for men and women. And sometimes for men, oftentimes they don't find out that they have HPV until they're diagnosed with cancer. So luckily as women, we have the opportunity to we're kind of used to going for our gyne exam. And I really believe, Betty, that what's going to become the norm is for both men and women to be doing their own, because you can do now HPV testing at home.
Oh, nice.
And so I think that we're going to see a trend where more and more men and women are testing themselves for high-risk HPV virus at home to find out if they're testing positive, in which case they can start taking action to prevent it from causing cancer.
Yeah, like you said, the goal is to find it if you've had exposure and to address the virus before you start getting abnormal cells and having to go through all of that. Yeah, because I mean, I know, just like you said, there's so many women that have gone through procedures thinking that they've removed that tissue, and so therefore they're not going to get it, and that virus attacks lots of other things. So let's make sure that everybody understands how you get HPV, right? There's probably a lot of misinformation there too.
It's such a good question, because a lot of times this is where the conversation begins. Women are like, how does this even why is this even showing up? Sometimes you might have been exposed years before, and maybe just the test hadn't been done and you didn't know. We're exposed through genital contact. That's the understanding of how high-risk HPV is spread at this point, is skin-to-skin genital contact. So it's not passed by drinking from the same glass or kissing on the mouth, or you're not going to pass it to, by sleeping next to your child in your bed. That's not, or from a towel. It's not known to be spread that way. It's known to be spread through direct genital contact. And so, and as you mentioned earlier, there's no symptoms of high-risk HPV. With the low-risk HPV, human papillomavirus is associated with warts. So someone might notice even warts on your hands is human papillomavirus. So remember, there's 150 different kinds, and they go to different parts of the body. So the high risk types of HPV, those are the ones that that are associated with cancer risk in these specific areas of the body. It's areas of the body that we've well identified, right? But the thing is, we don't want to wait until cancer happens. And so if you just have high risk HPV, it's not known to cause, like, you're not going to have necessarily like a vaginal discharge or pain or bleeding or anything. Some women, Betty, do tell me that they had a sense, sometimes women have a feeling that something was going on. If you have that feeling, definitely go get tested and let's address it. But in the medical textbooks, there's no symptoms. Now, the way I look at it is, as a naturopathic doctor and women's health expert, I'm always looking for clues, right? And there's gonna be clues of how this virus is showing up, because here's the key to know. This is often debated, by the way, all the time. People are online and in Facebook groups questioning. They're like, but I've heard that you can't get rid of the virus. And this is a myth, a misconception from the past, because now that we have very accurate DNA testing of a virus, we can measure the viral titers. So we know, and research demonstrates this, that the viral titers can go to 0, meaning the virus is cleared and gone, and the human immune system has taken care of it. It's no longer existing in the person's body. So we know the human body, the human immune system and microbiome, we know it can clear high-risk HPV completely and ongoing into the future, even if you're exposed again. And I have many cases that I worked with to demonstrate this. Even women who are being exposed to HPV from their partner, it still doesn't test positive because their body has now mounted an immune response to protect them. And so it's really important to know that and to dispel that myth and to say, actually, that changes everything. If knowing that our human bodies can protect us from high-risk HPV, I mean, the other way the clue we know this, Betty, is that if you think about the millions of people who are exposed to HPV every year, millions of people are exposed to this high-risk virus, but not all of them test positive, right? If it was only about exposure, everyone would be testing positive.
Right.
So it's not that. It's that we're most all exposed, and yet only when the immune system is not able to protect us from the virus does it then remain in the system and test positive. And so when I see someone testing positive for HPV, right away I start thinking there's a reason why. There's a reason why the virus is positive. There's something about the system that's not fending it off. You know, the immune system's got to be depleted, the microbiome, and we can talk about all the different possible reasons why. Why is it that this person's system's not clearing it?